Hi, everybody. It's Tim Constantine from the Washington Times and joined, as always, by David Bozell. Hi, David. How are you?
How are you, Tim?
I'm doing good. Thank you. You know, the Supreme Court saw some action this week, and I happened to be
Yeah.
right outside the Supreme Court in the morning and saw the crowd, saw the angry mobs hollering, chanting. And before we dive into the substance of the issue they were talking about, I've got to tell you, the chants seemed old and stale to me. There was a young group that was saying,
On which side?
the old saying, no justice, no peace, meaning if we don't get justice, there will be no peace in the streets. You know, that's 50
Yeah.
years old. But they didn't
Right.
quite understand that. So they were chanting, no peace, no justice. No peace.
Oh
They
boy.
didn't understand. They just knew they
Oh
were
boy.
chanting
Oh
something.
boy. I think
How
ChatGPT got that wrong for them.
I I think you're right. Which leads nicely into my discussion about this is, do they not teach Civics 101 anymore? The role of the Supreme Court is not to decide whether or not they think something is a good idea. They're not a legislative body. They're not supposed to insert their personal experience, their personal opinion. They are supposed to just have two simple questions. One, does the person or entity bringing suit have standing to do so? Meaning, do they have a dog in the fight? Or are they just some random person that's trying to interfere in the legal process? The second question is, does the Constitution allow or require this, or maybe prohibit this? Those are
Right.
the only questions that the Supreme Court answers. Now, they may write that into a 70-page opinion, but they don't get to think, when I was 7, it didn't seem fair that such and such happened. So when we looked this week at the abortion pill, the idea was not whether or not the abortion pill is a good idea or abortion is a good idea. Civics 101 would tell us their choice was to decide whether or not the people bringing suit, which was a group of doctors, had standing, and whether or not
Hmm.
the Constitution is in any way threatened by the existence of this pill being sent out. The FDA allows it to be sent out by mail. What did you
Right.
see from the members of the court?
Well, look at the left, right? I mean, they've been advocating for a massive increase in the Supreme Court's numbers for quite a few years now. They want an activist court. They want that which they cannot accomplish through legislative means. They want the court to legislate for them. It's a really fascinating case. You have Texas trying to insert itself into an FDA declaration saying essentially what you just said. Can you get an abortion pill through the mail? It is tougher to buy a pack of cigarettes now. It is tougher to get on an airplane. It is tougher to get a driver's license. It is tougher to vote than it is to get an abortion pill in this country, according to the FDA. And so I don't know how we've gone through from safe, legal, and rare. In if everyone remembers Bill Clinton era abortion politics,
Right.
to here's your abortion pill over the counter through the mail, no prescription required. Kind of a message are we sending to our kids? And from a policy perspective, the court's got to ask itself: does Texas have standing? Right? Texas has its own fairly restrictive abortion laws on the books. Does the FDA's declaration interfere with Texas or vice versa? They're going to have to decide that. I think it's going to be 50-50.
Yeah, it's interesting. The left loves to say, oh, it's a 6-3 conservative Supreme Court. And
Yeah.
yet I
Yeah.
don't see 6 votes. I didn't see a lot of strength from the questions that went yesterday. I do think they had a lot of questions about standing. There's a group of doctors in Texas that said, we're afraid, we're concerned that this will be misused either through error
Hmm.
or otherwise because people are getting it in the mail. And as doctors, we will be impacted because they will show up in our emergency room. We have one, that's a time, effort, and cost, but they said we understand that's our job. Two, though,
Right.
we're now assisting in abortion, and in the state of Texas anyway, a doctor has the right to say, I don't want to participate in that. So that's their
Right.
claim why they have standing. There were a number of justices including some of those moderate and slightly right justices who were questioning whether they really had standing.
Yeah, and then of course you're going to see, I think, some of the moderate justices suggest, why is this our issue to begin with? Right? If
Right.
Congress does not agree with the FDA's decision or its implementation of this decision thereof, Congress can stop the funding of the entity within the FDA that has declared this rule. And this goes back to basically Obamacare, right? If you don't
Right.
like it, stop funding it. And it gets to some of the core issues of our time, right? The Congress, this goes back to even John Boehner, right? John Boehner did not want to defund Obamacare. He wanted the court to deal with it, right? So he sues and he loses, right? And the court basically told him, stop funding it. You're under no constitutional obligation to fund it anyway. And in
Right.
fact, it's the very power of the purse that the Constitution grants you to stop funding it. So this is the core issue, really, of our time on a range of issues. You see it being manifesting itself up on Capitol Hill even today, with regards to the border and other things. But I think the court, I have a funny feeling that I think the court's going to come back and say, we don't like it. It interferes with Texas. But the other chamber down the street, they decided to fund this implementation, therefore it stands.
I think you're right. If we go back in college, constitutional law was my favorite course. It is quite literally the only book I still have from
Right.
school. Constitutional law, absolutely love it. And so I look at what's here. I'm afraid, like you, I'm afraid that they're going to say, you know what, this isn't our issue. I mean, I'm simplifying, you're simplifying, but I think they're going to say this isn't our issue. And I think they're going to say the docs don't have standing. That somebody shows up in the emergency room, they need to take care of them regardless of the cause. So I'm going to set aside the constitutional part, and I want to just talk for a second about the abortion pill itself and the fact that they're mailing it to people. Is right now it's hard enough to get a rational, reasonable, educated person who sat down with their doctor and got a prescription. It's hard enough to get them to follow the instructions. How many times, if you've had an
Right.
antibiotic, you've had something simple, and the doctor will say, now please keep taking this until they're all gone. I know you're going to feel better after 3 days, but don't stop then, because you still need to get it out of your system. You have to take it all 7 days. I have friends who are college educated, rational people that after 3 days still go, well, I feel better. I'm not going to keep taking this. And they have a problem. And I'm thinking, all right, those are following all the most cautious steps. Now we're dealing with something that is proven to have had medical consequences in a certain percentage of people that take the pill. And you have no doctor involvement whatsoever. You're getting something in the
Right.
mail, you run out to the mailbox, you open it up, pop it in your mouth, and let's see what happens. And I'm just
Right.
thinking,
Where does it
where
stop?
is this a good idea? Whether you're pro-life, whether you're pro-choice, where
I
is this
know.
a good idea?
Right. Right. No ID required, by the way.
Right.
So, we're literally just at any age you can get an abortion pill through the mail. It's just she starts to
11-year-old
think too, like,
Josephine Jones can get it.
what kind of country are we living in? What kind of a country are you living in when we're requiring IDs to go buy a pack of cigarettes, to go buy a 6-pack of beer? We require IDs to go fight for our country, and we don't require IDs and identifications and prescriptions to kill children. It's unfathomable. But give it to the left. Give them a little bit of credit. They will, where there's a will, they will find a way.
Let me
And
ask a
they
political
have
question.
they won't stop.
Strictly political question here, and that is, have we gotten to the point where the pro-life and pro-choice sides are so dug in that issues aren't even about people or about women or about babies anymore? It's just about wins
Yeah.
and losses. Have we gotten to the point where the left, in this case, just wants a win? They don't care if some 12-year-old girl in Texas dies because she has a reaction to this. And I'm not saying the left doesn't care. I'm saying that's how it comes across, is that
Right.
the win is more important than the health and well-being, the common sense of the issue itself? Have we gotten to the point where it's strictly wins and losses?
Well, and the pro-life community is on a record losing streak. And so if it's about wins and losses, the pro-life side has to dust itself off and think about what it wants to do going forward. Um, but again, this is the macro of this is electing pro-life conservative Republicans in Congress. In our tool is to not fund this stuff. I mean, that is that is what the Constitution affords us. And if we refuse to use these tools, then essentially we're funding our own demise. And beyond that, politically, the Democrats are going to use abortion. I mean, they just won a state election in Alabama just the other day. It was a Republican held seat for many years. Trump plus whatever, double digits, and they just used abortion as the wedge issue to upset the state Republican in Alabama of all places. Um, the pro life effort has, and all of us, myself included, have challenges with regards to how we message this issue, how we prioritize what we want to accomplish. What are we doing for young pregnant women? What are the policy prescriptions that we want to propose in advance to help pregnant women that don't, that didn't ask to be in this situation? We need to be more vocal and more public about those prescriptions. But at the end of the day, it's one of these issues that I really do fear, Tim. Sadly, I think for our audience, the left will not stop until there is abortion on demand funded by the United States taxpayer up to and perhaps even including the moment of birth. And until we sort of meet that head on with equal vim and vigor, that's the path we're going to go down as a country. And I think the Supreme Court's going to keep coming back and saying, until you guys stop funding all this stuff, stop bothering us.
We'll leave it there. David Bozell, thank you, my friend.
Thanks, Tim. Appreciate it.
For America, we are the Washington Times.